Thierry Vermagen. Is mich drolling. Will Tugama. Morning, folks. It's your friend the Wren. Happy Solstice. Yes, today is the December 21st. And I tried to watch the sunrise at Newgrange live, but I didn't see any sun. So like the groundhog, I went back to bed. Because that would have made it like, 3:30, 4:30 in the morning here. Back to bed for a few hours, got the kids on the bus. So I got some solstice thoughts this morning. If you don't know me very well, you don't know that I love Neolithic culture. The Bronze Age is cool. I love the Iron Age. But there's something like completely fascinating about the Neolithic culture. The Kurgan, the Ehrenfeld, the Bell Beaker, just all the stuff from the Neolithic period throughout Europe. Different advancements in farming and pottery. The megalithic culture, the builders. Just love that stuff. And that's where today's solstice thoughts are coming from. The Neolithic. Let me get a pipe together. We have one of the Sherlock Petersons. And we have some vitamin N, which is actually this. I forgot to bring my coffee in this morning. Anyway, look at this flake. Look at the beautiful flake of this tobacco. This is tobacco. It looks like jerky. It smells like jerky. It's like you could eat it. It's good. But because it's vitamin N, it's like I call it vitamin N for nicotine. It's very strong. Very, very strong tobacco. But it's so good. So the Neolithic culture, like I said earlier before, that I got up early to watch the sunrise at Newgrange. Brun de Boyne, as you call it. It was posted live on a website, which was awesome. Can't travel overseas, but you can just turn your phone on and tune into something like that. That's pretty special. So a lot of the things that we know about the Neolithic culture are speculative. It's definitely a lot of conjecture. But, breaking up this flake. There does seem to be some scholastic agreement on theories. Excuse me. Alright, lighter. It definitely seems that there is this major concern in the Neolithic when they're building these megalithic sites. There's an extreme focus on building in a giant, large scale in various places, but mimicking up. Alignments are huge. Like this morning at Newgrange, at Brun de Boyne, it's the rising sun of the solstice that comes over the horizon, and its beams are aligned to what you call a roof box, and the light shines down the inner chamber, down the main hallway, I guess you would call it, to the very back of the burial chamber, to the mound. Why was the Neolithic culture obsessed with alignments? You have to look at what's going on in their world. You know, they were a excuse me. They were a hunter and gathering people for a long time. And then they started setting roots. When they started doing this, they started let me rewind a bit. All the big game hunting, you'd probably say from the Ice Age, all the big game hunting was pushed to the fringes. And then when the big game died off, they started knocking around with agriculture. But they did this for like 5,000 years. So that's a long time. So they did their hunting and gathering. They're playing with agriculture. And that brings us into the Neolithic period. During the Neolithic period, people were focused on the farm. They're becoming an agricultural people. They're setting roots. They're building community. They're developing social roles. They're trading. And with trade comes creative ideas. And they start building. They become a part of the landscape. You could argue that before agriculture, they might have been more lunar. It's possible to think that way. And with agriculture, there was a shift to solar. Maybe that's why there's such a major solar influence with a lot of these sites. I'm not sure. Symbolically, it's hard to say what they might have been trying to achieve with places like Brundeboin. You picture the solstice being, this is the longest night of the year and the shortest day. And they have an alignment for the sun, the morning sun, the rising sun, to enter into the chamber, the death chamber, the burial mound. Is this some sort of gateway or portal for the dead to either return or to go home to the afterlife? The light acts as some sort of vehicle. Really is hard to say. Well, we picture things like Stonehenge. So at the henge, there's all this, focus that, it's the summer solstice site. But is it? I don't think, and this is my opinion here, I don't think that Stonehenge is simply just for summer solstice. When you walk into a church, say if you're a Catholic, you walk into the church, you have the main aisle, and that is right in front of you, The main aisle is what? The main aisle takes you right down the center. Down the center of the whole church, a few steps, Then there's an altar. Then there's a priest. And behind the priest is a very tall crucifix with Jesus on there. It's like this, and it's right in front of you. When you walk in, it is right in front of you. That is the focus. You don't have to walk in and then turn around to look out the door. So it's arguable that the avenue of Stonehenge sets you up into the place of what is the most important feature of the site, is when you walk down the avenue of Stonehenge and then you enter within the confines, and I'm talking about when it was fully built or in the last stages as it was. The tallest of the trilithons is right in front of you. And that trilithon is aligned to what? The setting sun of winter solstice. Now let's examine the solstice. I believe solstice comes from the Latin, which means to stand still. So to the ancients, the measuring of the sun on the horizon and in the sky for a short period of time during this winter solstice, the sun would appear to stand still in the sky. It didn't move along the horizon. So, going back to Stonehenge, if we approach the avenue, we walk down the avenue, we approach the henge, we enter the henge. Oh, jeez, I'm sorry. We enter the henge. We are looking at the tallest of the trilithons. We are there at winter solstice. We can imagine that the sun is setting behind the henge. Big blood red sun setting, going down. Eventually what happens is the sun is at the center of the space between what we would, like a doorway of the trilithon. And at that point, it would reach the altar stone. That is the light, the last light of winter solstice. And the light would shine which way? The light would shine out of the site, down the avenue. Now, if these places are... I don't want to get really generic here, but if we're going to associate these sites with the Mother Earth, and I hate that term really, but if we're going to associate these sites with agriculture and fertility and death, it's life, death, rebirth type of cycle, then you could possibly suggest that with the setting sun at Stonehenge, excuse me a second. Govala scale. Excuse me. Tabron. Sorry, I am super congested. Yeah. So, back at that. If we're back at the henge, and these places are connected with the land and fertility and death and life and rebirth, the setting of the sun at the henge with the light filling the chamber, you would say in a way, or rays penetrating that central trilithon, and then shooting, what you would say, from the center of the site down the avenue. That is light leaving the womb. That is birth, not death. That is light being born into the world. If you think of the enclosure of the henge itself as a womb, and then the avenue is the birth canal, then you can see how light coming out would be significant for solstice, because every day from here on in, light is growing. We are gaining light until summer solstice, which is the longest day of the year and the shortest night, and then every day from there, we are losing light. So, I would suggest places like Stonehenge are symbolic of that, light coming into the world. And that's exactly, I think, what that means, is light is coming into the world. Is being born. Light is being born again. That there's a concept of hope. Light is returning now. Places like Brundaboyne, Newgrange, you have the light, the light from the morning sun, from the horizon, filling a burial chamber. The light is not coming out of it, it is going into it. It is giving... Is it the vehicle? Is it giving birth? Is it allowing them to come back, the ancestors come back, or is it allowing them to go home? But the light is being penetrated into the womb of the earth. You have to understand the cosmological world of these people, which is difficult, but, there's words like Sky Father and Earth Mother. So, there is that connection there. Well, if you look at Stonehenge with summer solstice, it's the reverse. We have the sun that rises on the horizon, and then the sun shines down the avenue and enters the circle. It would enter the circle. It would hit the altar stone, and it would hit the largest trilithon. It might even cast a phallic shadow. But at summer solstice, the light is coming down the avenue and in. It is impregnating. It is impregnating the Mother Earth. I don't know. I'm basically rambling, just some thoughts that are running around my skull. No, I'm not saying that all these sites are solar. There are lunar sites that deal with the rising and setting of the moon. Places that have recumbent stones. There's lots of places that measure the sun and the moon together. This could easily be some sort of significance that, we are not giving up our old ways, being lunar people perhaps. We're just adding to this now. We are now solar and lunar people. We don't know which deities these people had, or concept of the ancestors, or we can speculate. We do know that it was enough for them to, take on these projects that were huge, that the manpower must have been enormous, and the types of tools needed, and just the standard unit of measurement that passed down, and all these sites being linked. It was important. And think of all the sites that we don't know about that were destroyed. We'll never know. It does seem, though, that the concept of life, death, rebirth, the concept of ancestors or another world, this mimicking of building something grandiose and having it aligned to a specific thing, a lunar or a solar or a rising or a setting, was a giant focus of the builders of the Neolithic world. We don't see this during the Iron Age. When you transfer over from the Neolithic through the Bronze Age, they start working with copper and tin, and then bronze, and then the Iron Age. By the time the Iron Age comes, the Neolithic sites are pretty much just abandoned. There's no communal effort. People return to the forests, groves, nematons, beside creeks and lakes. They're working through the farm. And their culture is a warrior culture based on metal. The culture itself has changed dramatically. So this concept of linking these druids from the Celts, from the Iron Age culture, all the way to the Neolithic people, is dangerous and not exactly an accurate thing. Though, it could be argued that the people responsible for the design, the physics, and the building of these Neolithic sites, these wise people, the ones in control of things, the information, might have been the proto-druids, if you would. These were people that knew the world intimately, and they were always passing things down. So it's very possible that the type of religious function that they had was continued on in a way through the Iron Age. Possible? Yeah. Probable? Not very likely. But it's a possibility that you can't really rule out if you're trying to be objective. So, solstice. To stand still. A lot of people have a vigil. They'll stay up all night and watch the sun come up, or something like that. But, yeah, those are my thoughts for solstice. I hope you guys have a good solstice, and you can stand still for a little while. And give some thoughts to the ancestors, the ancient ancestors. Think of how you would daydream yourself into a world of the Neolithic. Hope you have a good holiday season. We'll talk to you soon. It's wonderful.